Hello, soul family. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how to remain free when you're triggered. Now, keep in mind, we're really always free. It's just an illusion. If we think we've fallen off the wheel, everything is perfect as it is. But, for example, today, I fell back into the illusion of being separate from people around me. And really, when we're triggered, this is what's happening. When I say triggered, what I mean by that is when we give in to reacting to the feelings we're feeling inside with whatever's going on in our environment or people around us, any behaviors, any words, anything external to us that triggers an emotional response, and then we react to the emotions inside of us. That's what I call a trigger. So I was responding to emotions, really strong emotions I felt inside. I felt a lot of pain of childhood things with a certain behavior that happened with my mom this morning. And I went back to her and I said something, just saying something along the lines of, I wish you were more aware of how much you pick on me, or something like that, and immediately when I said that, so from the surface, you may look and say, well, Caitlin, that's not bad. It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with it. But I stepped out of my higher self. I stepped out of my higher self and vibrated in the lower self, which is the emotional self, being controlled by my emotions. And so I chose to step out of my higher frequency in that moment to engage with what you could say the 3D, And so that's just one example of when we're reacting. What I realized is, instead of choosing to feel the emotion, walk away, immediately feel it and be by myself with it, and let it flow through me, because that's all it is. It's just whenever we're triggered, whenever we feel these emotions inside of us because of something external, they're just energies that are needing to come out. It's showing itself, oh, let me out. Thank you for coming up. Thank you for bringing that up. That's why everyone is our guide and teacher. In every event, it's a guide and teacher, Anyway, so I recognized that I resisted letting it flow at first. Well, that's not true, actually. I let it flow first, and then I went and said something. I stayed in that lower frequency. And so I took on that emotion. I attached to the trauma, and then I acted on that trauma. So that's a perfect example of stepping out of our higher selves, stepping out of the frequency of love, stepping out of the frequency of unconditional love in response to the triggers, okay? The good news is we can always, it's all a circle, right? So everything's perfect. So that was meant to happen. That was meant to teach me. So what I learned was, I've always in the past felt quote unquote wrong, or feeling stepping out of that cycle, stepping out of the higher self, was when I was only in the action when I reacted, right, to the feeling inside of me. But what I realized was, the moment I step out of that higher frequency is actually before the action. And it's when I am perceiving the person in front of me as separate from me. When I am perceiving the event outside of me, or an action of someone else, or anything outside of me, as external to me and not inside of me, and a reflection of myself, when I perceive it as separate from me, when I fall into that illusion, that's when I'm stepping out of my higher frequency. So in order for us to even take those actions to react and take on the trauma and to perpetuate it, we are first believing in the separation, acknowledging that there's a separation. So this goes back to why reading the book, The 4 Agreements by Michael Ruiz, is so helpful. And reading my book also too, I wrote a book called The Tapestry of Injustices, Your Trauma is Your Spiritual Initiation. reading that book will help you embody and remain in the frequency of love, unconditional love. It's your highest self, being in the kingdom of heaven. So we can enjoy everything around us. We can enjoy the feelings that come up that we may have found uncomfortable to sit with and to let flow through us. But so we can release and then just go about our days, go about our life. And that's the kingdom of heaven. It's that bliss. Everything's flowing freely. And everything is a cycle. And so when we can walk in the way of everything is self, everyone is self, everything is a reflection of me, we are walking in our God state. We are realizing that we are projecting, either we are projecting everything, if we are, how are we projecting it in a way where this is myself, this is me, thank you for existing, thank you, like just showering, being unconditional love. It feels so light and free when we do this. Whereas if we're projecting trauma and fear and trying to control things outside of us and trying to control people around us or trying to change things, that feels restricted, right? It feels unpleasant. And that's because we're not living. There's a saying, I don't know who says it, but someone says life is meant to be lived, not controlled. And it's so beautiful. That's actually by Soul Sai. Soul Sai is an Instagram. They have poets and stuff on there. It's beautiful. But yeah, I hope this helps you. This is again why I wrote my book. The tapestry of injustices, your trauma is your spiritual initiation. And in the description of this video, you can find the link to that. You can also find a link to the playlist where we talk about these 5 principles to get to the God state, to get to the frequency of unconditional love and embodiment of compassion, so that we can remain in this frequency even as we are tempted to be pulled into our emotions and be pulled into trauma by reacting to things when we may be caught up in the illusion of separateness again. So remember, it's a cycle. Be gracious with yourself. But at the end of the day, we are one. Everything is a reflection of you. You manifested this video. You manifested everything in your life right now. You're very powerful. So thank you for being on this journey with me. And thank you for being the change we want to see in the world.